I think we're watching something build, and most people don't even realize it yet. Benjamin Šeško isn't just scoring goals. He's bending games. 6 goals in his last 7 appearances. 3 match-defining strikes off the bench. And the scary part? He's not even starting. This isn't hype. This isn't a purple patch. This is structural damage waiting to happen. Because when a 1.95-meter striker runs at 35 kilometers per hour, when he wins aerial duels like a target man but attacks space like a winger, defenders don't know what problem they're solving. And here's what makes this dangerous for the league. Right now, teams only have to survive him for 20 minutes. 20 minutes of chaos. 20 minutes of stretched lines. 20 minutes of one mistake deciding everything. But what happens when that becomes 90? This isn't about form. This isn't about momentum. This is about a striker who's quietly becoming inevitable. And if you're a defender in the Premier League right now, you should already be worried. Let's slow this down, because before you understand the goals, you have to understand the body. Benjamin Šeško is 1.95 meters tall. That alone should define him. Tall striker, target man, aerial threat. Simple, except it isn't, because that same body has been clocked at over 35 kilometers per hour. Those two facts are not supposed to coexist. The Premier League has dealt with big strikers before. Win the first contact, get tight early, don't let them turn. Problem solved. But Šeško breaks that equation. Step tight to win the header, he spins and accelerates into the space behind you. Drop off to protect the space? You've just handed Manchester United 30 yards of territory. That's the trap. He forces defenders to choose between 2 bad decisions. And modern elite football isn't about overpowering teams anymore. It's about forcing hesitation. 1 second of doubt, 1 half step late, 1 defensive line that isn't perfectly synchronized. That's all he needs. He wins aerial duels. He attacks channels. He carries the ball through contact. He arrives in the box with balance. Most strikers are either weight or speed. He's both. And when a defender doesn't know whether he's preparing for a sprint race or a wrestling match, he's already lost. That's why this isn't just good form. It's a cheat code. To truly understand Šeško, you have to understand why Manchester United decided to pay 76.5 million euros. It was not money spent hoping he might work. It was money spent because the club believed he would work. The modern Premier League has quietly changed. Buying a striker is no longer only about scoring goals. Top teams are now purchasing what might be called defensive stress. They are buying forwards who disturb opposition structure before a chance is even created. They want a striker who can stretch defensive lines. A striker who can force a center back to question his positioning 40 yards away from goal. A forward who makes defensive units sprint backward in panic. That was the profile United were targeting when they completed the Šeško transfer in the summer of 2025. The 76.5 million euro price tag was not a statement of uncertainty. It was a declaration of intent. It was a strategic bet on the future shape of the team's attack. Because in modern elite football, especially at the highest level, the most valuable attacking asset is not just finishing ability. It is the capacity to generate psychological and structural pressure before a scoring opportunity even appears. Šeško represents the type of striker who can make a defensive line uncomfortable even when he is barely touching the ball. That is why the transfer was viewed as a long-term tactical investment rather than an emergency solution. When Carrick returned to the dugout at Manchester United, he didn't try to rebuild the team by changing everything at once. Instead, he changed the rhythm of the match itself, not necessarily the formation on paper, but the speed of play, the risk profile, and the zones from which United chose to attack. Carrick's United is not built to slowly suffocate opponents. It is built to create controlled chaos, pressure the opponent until structure starts to break, then remain calm inside the chaos. That philosophy directly changed the value of Šeško inside the system. Under Carrick, United increased direct attacking sequences. Fast transition attacks became more frequent. High turnovers were deliberately targeted. The idea was simple: win the ball higher up the pitch, play forward immediately, arrive in dangerous areas before the defense is organized. Because when a defensive line is forced to sprint back toward its own goal, Šeško becomes almost impossible to defend. He does not need 20 touches. He does not need long build-up involvement. He needs 1 corridor of space, 1 second of hesitation from the defender. And that is where Carrick's system meets Šeško's profile perfectly. Carrick is not using him as a traditional starting 9. He is sequencing his presence inside the match. The story of Benjamin Šeško under Michael Carrick began to take a very specific shape, not as a guaranteed starter, but as the most dangerous late-game weapon in the league. The pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. Against Fulham FC, he came off the bench and scored the winner in a chaotic Old Trafford encounter, sealing a 3-2 victory that followed Carrick's attacking game state philosophy. Away against West Ham United FC, the match was heading toward disappointment. Then came stoppage time. Šeško produced a clinical equalizer in the 6th minute of added time, a toe-poked volley that rescued a 1-1 draw. Carrick described it as an unbelievable finish. But tactically, it was more than that. It was a survival goal, a moment where structure had collapsed and the match became a battle of fatigue, space, and timing. king. Then came the game against Everton FC. This was the purest version of the pattern. United were not dominating the match. They were waiting for the decisive moment. Šeško entered from the bench and scored the winner in the 71st minute. Reports confirmed that no player in the league had scored more goals from the bench that season than him. 6 goals in his last 7 appearances. 3 decisive strikes as a substitute. This was no longer just form. It was a role. Carrick had built what analysts started calling the late-game leverage strategy. Protect the defensive balance early. Keep Bruno high as a creative outlet. Then introduce Šeško when the opponent's defensive line was tired, stretched, and psychologically vulnerable. Because by the 60 to 70 minute zone, defenders are facing 2 types of fatigue. Physical fatigue, legs losing explosive power. Mental fatigue, spacing decisions becoming slower. That is exactly the environment where Šeško becomes most dangerous. Many fans interpret his substitution role as lack of trust, but inside Manchester United's tactical structure under Michael Carrick, the decision is more sophisticated than that. Šeško is being used as what modern analysts call a chaos striker. Not chaos in the sense of randomness, but chaos in the sense of forced opponent error. Šeško's statistical profile supports this interpretation. His pass completion rate sits around 67%. His successful dribble rate is approximately 25%. These numbers do not mean technical weakness. They mean he operates constantly on the edge of contact, risk, and transition pressure. He is not built to dominate long build-up possession. He is built to destabilize defensive structure. Carrick's early match setup often uses a more connective attacking forward or a false 9-type presence to maintain circulation and positional control. The idea is to protect ball progression and midfield balance during the first phase of the match. Šeško is then introduced when the tactical environment changes, when the opponent's defensive line is forced deeper, when space begins to open, when fatigue reduces reaction speed. This is why analysts describe it not as benching, but as sequencing. Carrick is not necessarily choosing a substitute striker over a starting striker. He is choosing the moment in the match where Šeško's profile becomes mathematically more dangerous. The philosophy is simple. Control structure early, weaponize disruption late. And right now, Šeško is becoming the perfect late-phase attacking instrument. The debate around Šeško is no longer about talent. It is about usage. His output metrics present a strong argument for increased starting minutes inside Manchester United's attacking structure under Michael Carrick. His goal production stands at approximately 0.56 goals per 90 minutes. This is not a statistical illusion driven by single-match spikes. The figure is supported by expected goal contribution models. His finishing chances are coming from high-quality zones rather than low-probability shots. The positional data also shows offensive presence. Šeško recorded 71 touches inside the opposition penalty area during the measured sample period. That number is significant because it demonstrates involvement inside the highest value scoring zone. He also won around 45 aerial duels, reinforcing his dual threat profile as both physical target and transition runner. The 1,133 minutes of total playing time are equally important. That workload is roughly equivalent to about 12.6 full matches. From that sample, the scoring return suggests a striker performing at elite efficiency rather than volume dominance. The starting argument is therefore logical. If a striker can maintain this output while entering matches without rhythm, then giving him 60 to 90 minute tactical continuity could theoretically increase overall attacking stability. However, Carrick's selection philosophy is not based purely on individual statistics. It is based on match state optimization.